Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Version 1, a podcast where creative people come to talk about their creative processes, imposter syndrome, inspiration, failures along the way, and much more. I'm your host, Waverly, and this week I am joined by Rachel, who is a career and travel expert and the founder of Rachel Off Duty, a website for ambitious women seeking more adventurous lives. She is based in Los Angeles, but often workcationing across the globe. She works as a travel storytelling consultant in the advertising space full time. We talk so much about finding fulfillment outside of corporate America, creating your own metrics for success, changing corporate culture, where she is most productive and creative while traveling, and how she manages working full time, having her business on the side, and traveling a lot. So, without further ado, here is my interview with Rachel from Rachel Off Duty. Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for coming on my show. I really appreciate it. Can we start by having you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Hi, Waverly. Thanks for having me. My name is Rachel. I run a travel community and website called racheloffduty.com. It's on at Rachel Off Duty across social media as well. And essentially, it's a travel and career empowerment community for women looking to live more adventurous lives. I also work 9 to 5 in the advertising space in Los Angeles as a sales director, specifically for tourism as well. So I'm very much entrenched in the travel nerdiness, and you can ask me anything, but I just can't answer the question about where my favorite place is because I can't. There's too many. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks again for having me. It's great to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I can't wait to dive into your blog, but also balancing that with a full-time job because I think that's something that a lot of creatives have to do because sometimes a lot of people need like to keep working full-time, obviously, to support their creative endeavors. And I think that you have a really great, or it seems from the outside, I should say, we'll get into it, that you have a really great like strategy and a way to balance all of that. So that's really cool. Did you always like to travel even when you were a kid?
I don't know if I always liked it actively. I think it was just something that was the nature of my experience growing up. I grew up in Hawaii, and my family was on the mainland in the US as well as in the Philippines and Australia. So everything was at least a 5 hour plane ride to get to. So just by the nature of that, like I grew up going to the Philippines every other year since I was born. I think I got my passport at 6 months old just so that I could start doing that. So I think it was like necessity at first. It became like a necessity in order to go literally anywhere because in Hawaii you can't drive more than 2 hours like without hitting ocean. So like for me it was always something I was lucky to be used to. I didn't start to actively choose to travel until I was in high school. My high school started offering spring break trips that I had to beg my parents to go on, and those exposed me to Europe for the first time. And I finally got to see what it was like to just be somewhere independently on my own. It felt very cool and empowering. And it led me to study abroad in college, and the rest was kind of history from there. But it was a little organic. It felt, I'm lucky that I was used to it, but I didn't see it as, I don't know, like a tool for self-discovery or expression or anything like that until I was earliest 19, but definitely more so in my 20s.
Was there a particular trip that caused that shift for you? Because for speaking from my personal experience, I am Chinese American and I didn't get to go back to China until I was 19. So it's funny, like 19 seems to be a very pivotal year for us. And it was an incredible experience of self-discovery because I had never been to Asia or China. And that's, I think, what really affected me as an adult. So I'm curious if there was a specific trip or experience that helped you make that shift.
When I look at when I was 19, I was definitely ridiculous. I was studying abroad in Italy, and I think by the nature of just being in Europe, like I really was excited to just go somewhere new every weekend. And it was just so easy to do. I was flying Ryanair, taking nothing with me, like hopping on $8 flights, like as many places I could go. But I think that was like a volume play. I think I was really just going for it and trying to just see as much as possible, but again, still not really fully understanding what I wanted out of that, other than maybe at that point a country count. I don't think it was until my mid to late 20s even that I started to understand travel as something that could be personal, if that makes sense. That was when I started doing a little bit more solo travel, a little bit more intentional trip planning with my fiance. That actually happened later. And I think it was because there was a period in my early 20s after studying abroad where I was actually dating someone that didn't have a passport and didn't have any ambitions of going anywhere. And that was fine at first because you're in love and everything's fine and you're willing to make sacrifices. But over those years, I realized there was something missing, and that's when I think it really clicked for me. To answer your question about a first destination or a first trip or anything like that, one of the one of the most formative first solo trips I took was just spending 6 days in Tasmania while my family was in Australia. I was a little timid. I just attached that to a family trip just to see if I could do it. And that kind of threw me off the deep end. I was driving on the other side of the road, like staying in like hotels in the middle of nowhere, just like really unsure of what I was getting into. But it felt like I was almost reclaiming that part of me that I had lost. And so I think I credit that to just understanding what this was and what it meant to me. It took me some time to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you start thinking about travel as a career?
Around the same time as Rachel Off Duty was born, I didn't see it as a career at all. If you asked me in college what I wanted to do with my life, I bounced around from international business to acting to writing to PR for entertainment companies to fashion. I had my hands in five different pots and I was just excited to see what stuck. But as I started building Rachel Off Duty and working with tourism clients and travel clients, etc., I realized that not only did I really enjoy this lifestyle, I actually understood travel storytelling in a way that got me excited. So it actually was my blog and my website that gave me the inspiration to pitch a role at my company that was more aligned with tourism. So I was basically like a generalist. I was an account manager at my company at the time. And I asked my boss at the time what it would look like if I could start championing our tourism clients. And she was like, yeah, okay, you can have 6 months, figure it out, and then we can talk about writing a job description for you. In those 6 months, I hustled so hard trying to figure out what it would actually look like. I wrote my own job description, talked to all of my clients at the time, and really just tried to figure out like what it could look like. But it was really grassroots. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. That was 7 years ago. And I've been working in travel and tourism in the advertising and social media and marketing space ever since.
That's awesome. When did you start your blog and why did you? Because I think a lot of people love to travel, but maybe they don't necessarily want to document it. I have a lot of friends who travel, but they're like, oh, I'm like scared to start a blog or something like that. So I think it's really cool that you were able to do it and build it to be a successful website. So could you talk to me about the beginning stages and how and why you got started?
Yeah, it's not a very beautiful picture at the very beginning. I had no idea what I was doing. I started a blog when I was working at my last job, which was in the fashion industry. And my coworker at the time, now fiance, this is where we met, was at my last
Oh, I
job.
love that.
Yes, I know. We launched an influencer program for that company. And I started to be exposed to what it was like to work with content creators in the really early days of all of this, right? So like we didn't really know what we were doing. The content creators, they knew what they were doing, but we were all just figuring it out. What does it look like to make this a formal space? What does it look like to actually create cool content? And I started to get inspired by that. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to create my own outlet. I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but I'm going to give it another shot. I've been doing hobby blogs basically since I was 13. If you remember the days of Tumblr and all of that, like I had a really like robust Tumblr at the time with 1,300 followers, and I felt
Ooh.
really cool about that. So I'd always dipped my toe in it. But once I was exposed to the profession of it all and these creators that we were working with, I thought to myself, this is an interesting space and an interesting time for me to try again. So I started Rachel Off Duty And it was more of a fashion lifestyle space at the time. It wasn't involved in travel at all. And it was truly just this idea of me writing about my thoughts and my style and my personal self-expression outside of work. So that part stayed the same. For me, it was like, this is my corporate identity, but this is what I'm also trying to figure out outside of that. And it was just like diary focused at the beginning. About a year into it, I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I almost deleted my entire body of work. So it took me like 13 months where I just didn't touch it at all. I had no idea what I was doing. It didn't feel right. It wasn't working for me. And then I went on a trip to Ensenada, and I had all my like amazing outfits that I wanted to write about and all these things that I wanted to shoot and share on my Instagram, whatever. But after that, I found myself writing my itinerary down because a lot of people were asking for it. And that was so simple, but it was just the idea of writing as an itinerary versus writing about what I was wearing, where I had this moment where I thought to myself, this is so much more exciting to me. And I now am reflecting on all the things I would have done differently. It was my first time in Mexico. I made a lot of mistakes, but I thought to myself, like, this is more meaningful advice, and I am more excited to do it. I didn't feel as compelled to be like, these are the pants I'm wearing. I loved that side of myself and I loved that era that I had in the fashion industry. I couldn't reflect on it in the deeper way that my brain needed. And so it was that like 48-hour Ensenada trip that really sent me on this journey of if this is something I like to do that people find value in, how can I go deeper without erasing that side of myself that started it in the first place? And as I wanted to travel more, naturally I realized, oh, corporate America does not like that journey that I am on. So that was where I tried to keep the integrity of the advice of what it is like to explore yourself outside of work and what it is like to honor that side of you and realize that you are a whole person and not just what your LinkedIn title says. And so that has been a through line through Rachel Off Duty for the past 8 years, but it wasn't meticulously planned. It was a bunch of happy accidents, but to your point, just the idea of doing something rather than not, right? And just failing forward and experimenting a lot. If you read the first 3 years of work on Rachel Off Duty, many of which I've deleted by now, you will see the journey. And I'm happy about that. But it's just where you decide to focus your intention and your effort. And this was something that I stumbled into that ended up working for me.
That's so cool. I love how it naturally had this progression. And yeah, I think that's fantastic because I think so many people who maybe have the idea of exploring some sort of creative outlet, they stop or never start right at the beginning because they get so overwhelmed of, oh, I don't know if this is exactly what I want it to be or can it grow to this? And I think that stops a lot of people. I know it stopped me a lot from doing things, but I love how your journey, you've had this like very natural progression and it changed forms and you didn't touch it for a year, then you came back to it in a different way. So that's really cool. When you were first starting it out, how did you see your blog? Did you just see it? I assume you didn't see it as like a business quite yet, right? Did you see it more as like a hobby and creative outlet?
Definitely more a hobby and a creative outlet. And I think to your point, you can endeavor something like this, hoping that it's going to be a successful business, hoping that you're going to get a lot of followers and a lot of community members supporting you. But in the creative space, when the entire role is putting yourself out there and being true to who you are as a person and what makes you unique, I think if you start out right away trying to figure out where this is going to go, you're going to do yourself a disservice. And I think I have done that to myself countless times. I can't tell you even to this day how vulnerable it is to think about the work that you want to create. And then that voice starts to set off in your head of, oh, is anyone going to care about this? It's already been done. What does my perspective have to offer that hasn't already been replicated? And then you spiral. And I spiral all the time, even to this day. Like, Instagram has been the life and death of me because I fixate on what it will be like once I put myself out there. And then you start to edit yourself down, and then it doesn't become as real anymore. And then you're just creating the same content that the algorithm wants. And if you play that game, then what are you doing it for? I think there is some beauty of just starting something without a big grand goal and just seeing if you enjoy it first. I don't encourage everyone that travels to have a blog or have a social media presence. It has to be something that you want to do. It's not something you certainly have to do. It's a lot of work. So I think if you arrive at it in the right way and you feel like you have something unique to say, you're really inspired by the things that you were doing and you'd like to share that with the world, great. And start there and see where it takes you. But if you focus on the business side of things too early, at least in this space, you might fall into a style of work that does a disservice to who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were first starting your blog, did you face imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I live with imposter syndrome to this day. That doesn't go away. Sorry to your listeners, but
True.
yeah, 100%. Actually, in that first year or two where I was just blogging as a hobby, I don't know that I had a lot of imposter syndrome because, again, I was not attaching expectations to the project. But as I noticed that it had legs, as I noticed that it could potentially be a viable business, yeah, that's when imposter syndrome sets in. And I don't know that it goes away. I think a healthy level of imposter syndrome can be a motivator because if you think that you're the best person in the room and you think you're hot shit, like you're never going to challenge yourself to grow. So yeah, there's always a little voice even to this day in the back of my brain that is, are you sure you want to say that? Or are you sure that's going to resonate with someone? Or, oh, they did that a little bit better than you. And then you think to yourself, okay, how do I differentiate? How do I make this unique? Make this more authentic to myself and to my audience? And then you can play around with that. So I've learned how to do a little dance with imposter syndrome, but she still lives rent free in my head.
Same. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so many.
she's a what is it called? She's a squatter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of really creative people face imposter syndrome because in creative fields, there isn't a clear cut metric that you're measured against, like in some other fields. Just like in the corporate world, there's some concrete, like measurable things to say you're doing a good job. And sure, there are some things in the creative field, but it's so subjective. Like some people could love your content, some people could be like, that's not for me. And there's no like objective like this is good or this is bad in most cases. So I think a lot of people think and struggle with that even if they are super successful.
Yeah, you have to have your own metrics of success in any industry for sure. But in this industry that is so tied to social clout, my God, you need to have your own feeling of what is and isn't success to you. Because if you're basing it only on social media or on readership or anything like that, you'll get stunted. You're a photographer, like you'll get stunted if you base it only on external validation. And that has there I have taken periods of weeks at a time where I haven't posted anything on Instagram because I've let my mind go there. And it's so hard to get out. You
Yeah,
can really
absolutely.
get stuck in that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard. Everyone faces a different struggle with that.
Yeah. What are your metrics of success? How do you think about that in your work?
It's a good question that I was not prepared to answer. What are my metrics of success? I think for me, I've been trying really hard to build a platform that validates the experience of women like myself who work full time that want to strive for something outside of that. And for me, the thing that makes me feel the best is it's almost this, it's like this, it's a phenomenon that happens sometimes in my DMs and sometimes in person. But for me, success is when a woman pulls me aside and says, I love what you said about this. I love that you encouraged me to take a leap of faith and ask for more time off or a raise or anything like that. Or a workcation, which I do a lot of currently. I read your article and I had a conversation with my boss about it, and it was because of something that you created. So thank you for that. That is like my biggest metric of success because I wish I had something like that 10 years ago when I was starting my own corporate journey. Like almost like a big sister being like, hey, don't let them tell you that it's frivolous to want to take a vacation, or don't let them tell you that you can't talk about your passions at work or your hobbies or say what you did on vacation because your coworkers don't care. Don't let corporate America suck you into thinking that you are not completely valid as an individual. And I think my metric of success is just hoping that other people know that because we do have a lot of toxic corporate culture in the US especially. So helping people unlearn that or at least challenge that a little bit, that to me feels good because that's the path that I decided to take. And I can see how it's transformed even the workspaces that I'm in. So even incrementally, if that can happen as a ripple effect elsewhere, then it's a success.
Yeah, that is so amazing. And that's definitely lessons that I have been trying to learn and unlearn over the last 7 years that I've been in the workforce because living in New York and also just growing up as an American in like the 90s, I assume we're like
Yeah.
around the same age. It is this very capitalist mindset. And the definition of success is, do you make six figures or do you have your name on a door in an office, that sort of thing. And that's how I was raised. And so I entered the workforce when I was 22, really wanting to work for the biggest companies possible and work my way up there. And it took several jobs and me leaving several jobs to realize, wait, I don't actually think this is making me happy or fulfilled. And it just, maybe this isn't for me, but that felt very scary to admit because when you're ingrained in something, ingrained in a culture for so long, straying from that is really scary. And also, money is important. We all need to pay our bills and everything like that. But I have had to really try to detach like how much I make from my self-worth or from my like metrics
Yes.
of
Yep.
success, but it's really hard to do. So that's cool. I love that you like measure yourself and the work that you do based on impact and the community you're building rather than X amount of dollars or titles or whatever.
Yeah, to your point about exactly what you just said. Number one, I love that I'm watching your most current chapter or journey on this on your Instagram because I know you've had your own career whirlwind in the past couple of months, right? And I love like all of the crazy things that you're doing currently, how you're leaning more into your photography. Like I
Oh,
love
thank
that.
you.
It's fun to see people step into that. You especially, right? Because I know that you've been on this parallel journey as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that's why like we gravitated towards each other a couple years ago. What I was going to say was I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago and it's going to come to me and I will tell you what that podcast is later. But it was this idea of detaching your salary or the money that you make from your inherent self-worth. You are inherently worthy, and that is objectively very different from what you deserve to earn by the merit of your work. And like those two things should be looked at as completely separate entities. But we, especially as women, like we intermesh that together as, oh my gosh, like I'm only as good as this, or this person's making $10,000 more than me, so therefore like they must be more successful, or they have more, so they must be more successful. And success and self-worth, if they're muddy waters, and that's why we all I think, fixate on that. But when you detach that, then you can take space and say, oh my gosh, like, of course I'm worthy of doing this or of trying this or of asking for this job. The money will come, and I have the merit and the experience to ask for what I deserve. But we have to look at our identities almost in silos in that regard. We are worthy people, and our jobs can be challenging. Our jobs can be areas where we have to negotiate for what we have done and what we deserve next, but they're not the same thing. And when we like confuse that, yeah, it can feel really heavy. And then if you don't get the job or if you don't get the raise, then you think that, oh my gosh, it's because I'm not worthy. That's the incorrect thinking that we have to unlearn.
Yeah,
There's so much politics that goes into raises and titles and accolades in the corporate space that are completely different from our own self-worth.
yeah, absolutely. And also, women tend to undervalue themselves too in a lot of cases, which is something we all also have to unlearn. Women don't ask for raises as much as men do. And that's something we also really have to unlearn as women. I think we all have to define success and our value to ourselves. And I think that takes a lot of work and probably therapy and unlearning a lot of things and learning a lot of things. But I think it also has to happen on a systemic level too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as I grow in my career, as other women that I hope are in the off-duty community grow in their career, you start to find yourself in a role of having to now model behavior that you want other people to do or to see and to relate to. So I always ask for raises and promotions, not because of my self-worth, but because I know what I have done and what I can achieve next. It
Mhm.
has to be based on the role and the execution and all of that, right? So I always ask for raises. I always talk about my vacations because I want to be that annoying person in the quote unquote office that is telling you how amazing the beaches in Mexico are. And what were we talking about on this Zoom call? Sorry, like I was just telling you how amazing my trip was. I want to be that person because I want other people to feel safe going on trips too and normalizing that. And so it almost becomes like this mirroring or modeling for women, especially in corporate, where if we want healthy behavior to exist, we might have to be like the person that does that, which can be really scary, but you never know who's watching and you never know who is so scared to do that next. It's funny, my coffee dates with some of my girlfriends lately, it's all just like co-therapy. Ask for that raise, ask for that job, like work remotely, do all the things, like come on, like you got this. And then we forget to do that for ourselves when we're
Yeah.
finally faced with the opportunity.
Yeah, I hear that. So your full-time job is fully remote, right? So you can work from anywhere?
Yes, it is fully remote now, but I was commuting in Los Angeles to an office Monday through Friday up until COVID. And I had been in office environments before that, like my entire career. So remote is a newer chapter for me, but one that I have leaned into fully in the past 5 years.
Awesome. I know you take a lot of workations and you work from a lot of different places. Have your trips and experiences inspired other people at your company to do the same?
Yes, and I'm so happy about that. And does corporate culture love that? I'm not sure. I think workations are a scary and unknown topic to a lot of people. But yeah, I've had several coworkers in the past 2 years Slack me or text me on the side and say, "Hey, I'm trying to workation in Mexico for 2 months, but I'm new to the company. Like, how did you do it? What do I have to prove?" So I've almost found myself in like a mentorship role in that way, just being like, okay, if our company is fully remote and it's works for one person but not the other, we have to understand why so that we can prove that it's not going to be an issue. So
Mhm.
I've had people approach me about wanting a workation in Mexico or like wanting to take 2 weeks off in Q4 and feeling so guilty about that. I've run the gamut in terms of trying to help some coworkers here and there just feel empowered to ask for the thing that they want. I think we all get so scared because the thing that we want is so at odds with corporate culture, oftentimes. But if you approach almost anything with a game plan and with a promise that ladders back up to your team or to your manager, you might be surprised what you can figure out together. And you won't know unless you ask, but you can't just ask. You have to have your bullet list, or you have to have your proof points, or you have to have your trial period, and you have to do that dance or play that game a little bit. But incrementally, you might be surprised what you can figure out. And so, yes, I've definitely played a role, I think, in normalizing things, at least in the corporate spaces that I'm in.
That's awesome. And you probably have had such of the same impact on a lot of people just through your readers, through your blog that maybe you don't even realize. So that's cool that you get to see the change you're making and the effect you're having on your company and also spreading that to all your readers who I assume are all over the world.
Yeah, I try to lean really heavily into North America just because of the
Mm.
culture that we are unlearning, but I do have readers and followers in like the UK and Australia, Europe. And sometimes they'll see my work and they're like, what are you Americans talking about? We just travel for 5 weeks of the year. That's so weird. Like, why are you like crying about having 10 days of PTO? And I'm like, you don't understand. This is not for you. We're just trying to be like you, okay, France?
Yeah.
Like, leave us
So
alone.
true.
Yeah, it's funny though. I actually want that global exchange so that other people can be reminded that some cultures don't see travel or time off as this nebulous thing that you can't actually do. In France, people consider it a rite of passage. It's just a right to life. It's something that is as natural as eating and sleeping. And we are not there.
Yeah.
And we won't get there unless we talk about it more. I have totally had people pull me aside at parties to be like, hey, so I read your article and I'm going to talk to my boss tomorrow. This is what I'm going to say. What do you think? And I'm like, who are you? Like, it's like I didn't even get a chance to say, hi, I'm Rachel. It's just like some people are like, hey. And to me, that is like the best feeling in the world because it just means that these are important conversations that are being had elsewhere. And like the ripple effect is happening. And there's like a sea change in the way that millennials want to work and the way that Gen Z wants to work. And the only way that's going to happen is if these conversations start to happen. That to me is like the biggest reward.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Could you talk to me a bit about what your creative process looks like?
Yeah, are you specifically
For
the
like,
blog
yeah,
or?
for like your writing, and I know you make a lot of social media content, so I guess how do you come up with ideas and then execute them and take me through from the ideation to hitting post?
Oh my gosh, it's all over the place. And I'm sure there are full-time creators that are more methodical than me. And if that is you listening to this, you can give me feedback. So, as far as preparing for social media and preparing for blog topics, if you will, it's a little bit different. On social media, I feel a little bit more freedom to have fun with it. On the blog, now that it's a full-blown business and also a resource, I want to make sure that I'm not just like wasting time on content that's not going to resonate. So on the blog, I'm doing research of competitor articles. I'm doing research now of what AI is giving to communities when it comes to remote work and adjacent topics. And I'm thinking of things that I want to write so that I can continue to be an authority on that, right? So I'll do that research. I'll come up with a list of topics or a list of angles. And as since we've worked together in the past, that's when I start to decide who has the expertise to write what. I ebb and flow from having like writers in a team helping me to do that, as well as taking on some of that content on my own based on who has the experience, who's been to that country, whatever. And then that kind of helps me with the ideation of that. As far as like promoting articles or things like that, I try to attach them then to what's happening on social media. So I might spend a month where I'm like yapping your ear off about gap years and sabbaticals. And then I'll slowly transition to really focusing on remote work. And maybe I'll bring in a country like Mexico or Belize where I might have worked remotely. And so it's a little organic in that way. I don't follow seasons as much as other travel creators. I really just follow trends and what people are talking about in the career side of things and then ladder that back to travel. Whereas in the past, I was just, I think, a little bit more, oh, I was just in the Philippines, so here's all my pretty pictures. Now, because I think it's more helpful to attach that back to real world circumstances, it takes me a long time to actually recap a trip because I'm making sure that it ties back to something someone can relate to. And then once I have that like theme, I just brain vomit. I use Monday.com as a project manager, and I just brain vomit a bunch of different directions that I can take that. And then I start to think about how I'm going to realize that. Is this a reel? Is this a carousel that I need to make because it needs to be saved? It has more information that people can pull from. And I start to dial it down really like down to the exact format, down to the date. And then from there, Jacob, my fiance, who is the creative director for Rachel Off Duty, he and I spend many late nights just looking at our Monday board and saying, okay, like, how do we execute the next week of work, the next week of work after that? It's really organic and it really evolves, especially as my full-time job takes up about 80% of my brain capacity. I post a lot slower than other creators, but that's because if we are only able to create one or two pieces of content a week, like we really have to be smart about what that is. And so that was a really long-winded answer to say it's not a perfect science. I think some creators do have a perfect science, but for me, I'm reacting in real time to what I'm experiencing as someone that works in the 9 to 5. I'm reacting in real time to what people are talking about, and then I'm trying to see where I can interject. And so I might have a plan for the month ahead that I'll change and tweak and refine in the late evenings as I get additional inspiration. It's like a living, breathing, never-ending creative process, but it keeps it exciting. Because I think if you batch too far in advance, at least in this world that we're in, it can become a little too mechanical, and that's like not what I'm trying to do. Yeah, it's a little all over the place
Totally. Do you ever experience writer's block or have you ever been in like a creative rut?
all the time. And I think because on the website, it is more methodical now, less writer's block there. But on Instagram, thinking of captions is like sometimes a nightmare for me because I'm not writing for SEO or for AI. I'm not writing to make sure that you discover me on the web. I'm writing so that you can see me and relate to me and to one another. And that can feel like standing naked in front of a crowd. And yeah, I get writer's block all the time when it comes to writing social media content specifically. And you might see me like reiterate and ideate like a caption like 5 different ways before I hit post. AI, I'm really learning how to try and use ChatGPT. Like I'm challenging myself to use that as a tool and to train it up so that it really understands my voice and can help me conceptualize. And that has helped a little bit. But yeah, the writer's block does not go away. But for me, it's more so social media than online.
Absolutely. How does travel play a role in your creative process? Do you feel more inspired or is it harder to sit down and work if you're in an exciting new place? Like, how does that play a role in your creative process?
I feel so much more creative when I'm traveling, which is really unfortunate because you would think that when I come back home to Los Angeles, I'm in grind mode. I'm creating everything. I'm like unpacking all of the things and putting them into Monday and putting them into my project boards, and it's great. That unfortunately does not really happen for me. All of my inspiration comes from being somewhere else, and I think it's just because I associate being home with normalcy, which I think is something I'm also trying to unlearn because inspiration can happen anywhere, and I understand that. But right now, my brain works in like a, oh, I'm home, therefore most of my effort needs to be running errands and doing my full-time job and seeing friends, and therefore that like frivolous travel video that I wanted to make is no longer a priority. But when I'm literally sitting there and living it and experiencing it and wishing that I could open a little window on your phone and show you and bring you along with me on Instagram, that's when I really feel it. So I'm trying actually a lot harder to like create or at least get started on the spot so that when I come home, I don't lose it. I think it's that whole sensation of shaking yourself out of your comfort zone and like seeing like the space that is open in your mind and doing that. I feel that so much. It's really hard for me to captivate myself with that when I'm home. I'm glad that I'm used to working a lot while I'm traveling, so it's not a stretch. But yeah, it's harder to get that back once you're like thrust back into the reality of everything else that's going on in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree because I think, even to use like a local example, I'm so much more productive if I go work at a coffee shop or something than I am in my apartment. Because let's say you're traveling to a place, even if you've been there before or it's a brand new place, like your mind's eye is already open to new experiences because you're excited to experience new food or a new culture or new museums or a sport or hobby or whatever. And so that mindset easily like bleeds into work probably versus, yeah, when you're at home, everything's familiar. So maybe your mind's eye isn't as open. So yeah, I feel you on that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, coffee shops are great. Also, this is maybe chaotic, but it really works for me. Working on planes, like with that really shitty slow Wi-Fi, actually works so well for me because the Wi-Fi is too slow for me to allow distractions. Like, I have to only focus on the task at hand, and it's going to take me 5 times as long because the Wi-Fi is so slow. But I like can't deviate from the plan because the Wi-Fi won't allow me to,
Yeah, and you
you
can't
know?
really get up and go do something. Like you are stuck on that plane.
Exactly. Yeah, you're stuck there. I didn't ask for the free like earbuds because I don't want to watch movies and get distracted. I'm like, I'm here with this shitty Wi-Fi and we're gonna get it done. So yeah, just like unconventional environments stoke it out of me in a way that just being home can't. Because here I'm like, I have to pick up my dry cleaning. We have to do the laundry. I have to cook dinner. Do I have groceries? Is my work inbox full? And then you start to just space out. And that does a disservice to being creative because when you're creative, you have to be all in, fully tunnel visioned into that. And that can be really hard to find when you're in your like comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that certain types of places inspire more creativity? Maybe it's a certain environment or certain weather conditions or cultures that draw that out of you more?
I'm definitely a warm weather person through and through, but no, for me, it's just anything that is new to me. I'll go everywhere at least once. I will find inspiration at a coffee shop in the middle of Missouri as much as I will find inspiration sitting on a beach in the Philippines. For me, as long as the Wi-Fi is decent enough, I can get work done and I can feel really productive and I can just be at the same time inspired by what's happening around me. It doesn't take much for me, actually, which is pretty great. But yeah, my ideal work environment is being like 5 steps from the beach or a body of water to swim in and being able to just like pop into that in between meetings or like after the workday. Ideal. I couldn't ask for anything more.
That sounds like a dream. That sounds amazing. Are there ever times when you feel either overwhelmed or unmotivated or things like that? Because I can imagine working full time, plus having a business on the side, plus being excited about being in a new place and wanting to explore all of that. I can imagine it could be very exhausting. So, how do you feel about that?
It's a lot. And I'm happy that I encourage people to travel versus travel and start a business because I think it's totally possible to work full time and travel. But once you throw another business into the mix, it is it's what keeps me up at night, that's for sure. It is a lot and it can and does have burnout effects for me, even to this day, even this week. What helps me is reminding myself why it all matters and why I do it. But what also helps and what I don't do enough of is taking breaks and creating mental space for myself. I struggle with that, and I don't know how to like shut off in a meaningful way. So it's a work in progress. I think creating different boundaries is something that I'm playing with this year. Planning a wedding as well with everything else that's going on. And I have to tell myself that it's okay if only one thing gets accomplished tonight when I'm done with my job because I've finished a full workday and I don't have as much never-ending energy to do all of this as I did maybe pre-COVID or maybe pre-wedding or anything like that. So I'm playing a lot with just like distilling things down to the nuts and bolts, trying to only do what's actually meaningful, what I actually need to do, and not what like the world and like the endless chatter tells me that I need to do. And sometimes that means maybe on Monday I'm only focusing on wedding planning. And on Tuesday, like I'm only focusing on at least preparing my social media calendar for the rest of the week. And if I can focus on only those few tasks and feel accomplished with that, then that's great. And I have to give myself the space to do that. So it's a work in progress. I can't say that's a perfect science because I'm still struggling with, oh, but what about this? Or, oh, like I didn't prepare for this. And my God, you just have to shake that off and just and tell yourself that like it is okay. And we can't expect ourselves to wear 15 hats every single day and sustain that. So I'm working on that, honestly, even to this day, and how to not unlearn perfectionism, if you will, but just unlearn like unrealistic expectations of what I'm actually capable of doing that take me out of also living in the present. Because I really struggle with that. I'm always thinking about what's supposed to happen tomorrow or next week or what's going to get me here. And then you blink and then like time passes and then you forget to live like right now. That's my biggest challenge for this year. especially as Rachel Off Duty is growing, as my job is growing. Yeah, if I don't do that work now, then burnout will be real.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many travel creators online now. I know you started like several years ago when that was just starting to become a new thing, but now it's like there's so many different travel creators and different niches. So, how do you balance originality with influence from other creators?
What I love about the space is that there is a place for everyone and every POV to exist because travel is not a monolith. And people need different ways to see the reality of it for them. I have friends in the travel creation space that specifically create content around partying around the world. Or I have friends that move about the world seeking out the best celiac friendly destinations or like gluten-free destination. Like I love that there is a voice for every mode of travel, every like intersection with humanity that could possibly exist. I think that's amazing. For me, the lane that I have chose, like that helps me to stay focused on what is most relevant to me and my community and stay in that. And that's not to say that there's not a lot of other things that I could talk about or discuss. We're all humans. It's not boxes that we sit in. But oftentimes I will see different creators do something that relates to their audience that inspires the work that I do. I even posted a reel on my Instagram yesterday that was inspired by a creator that's creating content about becoming a triathlon athlete. Like now she's like on this journey to be a runner and like a swimmer and all of these things. And I was like, that's really cool. Here's how I can modify that to my own audience. And I think that's like the like dance that you do as a creator is pulling from others, pulling inspiration and seeing how it can work for you as original. So yeah, for me, it's always about like how can I pull things back into this lens of motivation, of career, of entrepreneurship and travel. And if I can marry that, then great. That's why I actually ignore a lot of the trends that exist because I can't keep up, number one. And number two, I try to make sure that it like ladders back to like relevance. And if it doesn't, then I can't entertain it because again, I do have a full-time job. I have to be really selective about what permeates my brain as a good idea. But I
Yeah.
love there's so many creators that exist for any mode of travel now. Remote work has really empowered a lot of people to lean fully into that. When I started talking about that, it was so new and so foreign to so many people. Workcations wasn't even a word until like 2018. Like it's all very new. And so there's a lot of space for that. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you ever want to take Rachel off duty full time and not work a 9 to 5, or are you happy and comfortable with having it on the side in addition to your 9 to 5?
I've been asked this so many times. I don't actually know. I would totally entertain it if the stars aligned. But what I think I like to look, at least in my own career trajectory now, is that everything's a chapter and I am open to where the journey takes me in or out of corporate. Because for me, that's also, I love what I do in the sense of I have amazing clients. I get to work and travel 9 to 5 and after. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think the way that it manifests might change. And I'm happy to go on that journey. If there is an opportunity in which Rachel Off Duty needs 100% of my time, I will give that to it because it has helped people and it's helped myself. But I'm open to anything. So I think we'll have to wait and see. But it has been something I've been thinking about a lot because as like all of that creative pursuit, that's a full-time job and a half. So who knows? I think it is really helpful though to keep one foot in the corporate space, or I call it the W-2 space, because I need to make sure that I am being relevant and that I'm understanding what's happening in that world. But now with all of the new remote jobs, with all the new trends in work, like who knows where that will happen next. But right now it's been really foundational for the work that I've created. So I'm not in a rush to do anything really. I'm just trying to see the things that I can do for Rachel Off Duty right now as I exist in the 9 to 5 space and see where that takes me.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Okay, are you ready to move into the lightning round?
I will do my best.
Okay. No pressure. You can have time to think about these if you want
Okay.
to. So, do you have a lesson or message that you want to share with listeners?
Wow, we're starting hot. Just one?
You can have a list. That's okay.
No,
However
no,
you want to
no.
answer is fine.
Waverly, that's hard. Oh my gosh. If we're thinking back to this conversation that we just had, my piece of advice would be just to figure out different ways that you can advocate for yourself and what you want, even if that means having conversations with peers, having conversations with people that you consider to be mentors to figure out how you can get to the places that you'd like to be, advocating for yourself, especially for women. That is so important because we need to model it up, right? Whether that's in your corporate spaces, whether that's on a creator journey or traveling more, like any way that manifests, just figuring out ways that you can advocate for what you want is like a number one takeaway for me. So I hope that helps.
What is one thing you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
First, starting out as a creator,
Yes.
or
Yeah, or
okay.
if you want to answer it differently, that's cool too.
One thing I wish I knew when I was first starting out as a creator is that I really need to understand who I am and what my perspective is and do that work, ideally before you start, which is something I didn't do, right? Which is fine. But I wish that I had a better sense of self and sense of identity when I was starting, because I found myself really like copycatting and trying to mirror a lot of what was already been done, what has already been done. And I didn't sit with myself in a way that I should have. So I think doing that work first and figuring out your unique POV, that is like a really important foundational step that I missed and had to backtrack on a couple years later. So, yeah, that'd be my biggest advice. Figure out what your unique message is, your POV, your angle, whatever it is, and start there.
Fantastic. And could you give our listeners a recommendation? It could be for anything, like a book, a podcast, a film, some tool, or something to check out.
Yeah, as we were speaking, I remembered the podcast that I referenced
Oh, great.
earlier. It's called Unfuck Your Brain by Kara Lowenthal. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't, but I should check
So
it
it's
out.
Yeah, it's called Unfuck Your Brain, and it's really speaking directly to women about how you can unlearn societal like messaging or programming or all of these things, whether it's in corporate or whether it's in relationships, and have a better sense of mental hygiene about the way that you approach your life. It's really great. They're like 20-minute episodes on like a specific topic, like asking for a raise or what to do about your imposter syndrome. And it's very conversational. I actually highly recommend it.
Oh, cool. It reminds me of NPR's Life Kit because they do little 20-minute episodes of like random life things. So that's cool. I'll have to
Yeah,
check it out.
it just gives you like the language around what's happening in your brain, and like language is the first step to understanding and then dismantling it or like improving it. And like sometimes I'll be listening and I'm like, God damn it, like I do that. It's like she sees me. Like, so it's helpful and it's affronting in the best possible way.
Awesome. All right, Rachel, where can people find you and see all your fantastic work?
You can find me at racheloffduty.com as well as at racheloffduty on Instagram, TikTok, etc. And I think that covers just about everything. You can follow me for work and travel advice across all of those different platforms. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, Waverly. This was a great eye-opening conversation, even for myself, as I'm reflecting on everything. So thank you for putting that together.
Of course. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yay!
All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Rachel. And we are here this week with John, of course, who's here every week.
Oi,
And we have a special guest, our friend Vinny.
friend of the pod. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What is going on this week? Vinny, why are you here?
All right, so yeah, a lot's been going on in my life. So my wife and I, for a little more context, used to live in Costa Rica. We were there for 3 years, and because of certain things at work, unfortunately, the commute from Costa Rica is a little too long. So we've had to pretty much pick up our lives and move up to Rochester, New York, which is where she's from. And during that time, I was living with my in-laws. Thank goodness we found an apartment, moving in May 1st. But
Congrats.
thanks. Yeah, we love it. I can't wait to have you guys over. But yeah, after about a month and a half with my in-laws, I was like, I need a break. So I decided, why not come to New York City and hang out with my favorite people?
Yes, we are so excited to have you here. We're going to go to the Botanical Gardens. We're going to go rock climbing. We're going on a weed walk tonight.
We're going to go see Rumpelteazer at UCB.
Yeah, improv show.
Yeah, full schedule.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to have you here, Vinny. This week, I am getting ready to go to Palm Springs in Los Angeles for a travel writing program, which I'm so excited for because, one, I get to get out of this rainy, cold weather, and two, I get to spend the weekend with one of my best friends, Marilyn, who we all know. Shout out Marilyn if you're listening. But...
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi.
And then you guys get to have a boys' week without me. Do you guys have any big plans this week?
Not really. We're going to play it
Fucking
by ear. We're going to wing it.
chilling.
Yeah, just honestly taking it down a notch.
Hanging out with the fellas.
Exactly. And the girls.
Oh, yeah, and the two dogs, of course.
Yeah, let's clarify
Yeah.
that.
Pukey and Dookie.
Miss Pukey and Miss Dookie. Those are our two dogs.
Lovely
Tatiana
company.
and Sarah.
Yeah, because Tati always pukes. Sarah always does poopy in the house. We got Miss Pukey and Miss Dookie. John, what's up with you?
Just working and trying to figure out my time before. I'm debating if I'm taking Improv 201, but also like if I want to work on any of my own personal projects, all while people are hitting me up to work on their personal projects, where I'm like, makes me want to do my own thing instead, you know? Like that's a big push, is like time becomes the biggest currency. I feel like time is the currency because like I'm not in a place where I'm like worried about getting more money. And I feel like working with friends doing their projects is like losing money personally because they don't pay me enough for the time, which is
It's the most
And you
valuable
wanna-
thing we have.
Yeah, and you want to invest in your own personal projects, which requires a lot of focus.
yeah, because the world needs to know that I'm as smart as I think I am.
They probably bring you the most joy too.
No, it brings you pain and joy when it's complete.
There you go.
Or back and forth. You actually go through. The creative process is really similar to the 12-step process. Not 12 steps.
Scientific method?
No, the
You mean
creative
rehab?
process.
You talking about rehab?
No.
What's the 12 steps?
Okay, you're right. No, that is what I misquoted and misquoted myself. What I meant to say was the creative process is very similar to the stages of grief. It's like if you put those two circles on top of each other, like a Venn diagram, it's just one circle. It's a s-
Interesting. I've never thought about it that way.
What were the stages again? It was like denial, anger,
sadness,
bargaining.
acceptance,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Finishing your project is again a monument to compromise and acceptance. And you also go through all of those stages multiple times, or not multiple times, but like the stages of grief are built in a way where you start from the bottom whenever you mess up again. Like it's just how a human works.
What does the bargaining stage look like in the creative process?
It's like, oh, it's maybe if I would have done this, it's literally like restarting a piece because you're like, if I did it this way instead, it would be better.
and you're just like, no, you know what? I don't have to. But deep down inside, you know you have to.
And then like acceptance is you look back at it and it's you see that. You see that like, oh, I accepted that, you know?
We're gonna have to start again.
Or no, you're finished at the
Oh,
end.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry for that long tangent, everybody.
All good. Something we're also debating, you mentioned you're debating doing 201, which I really think you should do because it's been amazing seeing you grow and develop within the last 2 months and seeing your face light up whenever you talk about improv. Like, it's been really encouraging and exciting, and I'm really glad that you have this new passion. So I really think you should do 201 because it's been wonderful to see just as a partner, your partner shine, you know?
When she talks about my face lighting up, it's normally because people look at me and they think, he looks dim. But like dumb, like they're dim.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
It's what she meant, everybody.
But something that we're also thinking
Thank you, by the
about
way.
is-
That's very kind of you to say.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I was very excited every step of the way, and also felt pain whenever I didn't do well. So I'm like, that means care.
You're being way too hard on yourself. You did well.
I know what I'm capable of.
No, you did. He did really well. He's just really hard on himself.
Well, but not great, I guess.
Acceptance.
But something that I'm debating is, should we talk about Iceland?
Ooh, it's
'Cause I
it's
didn't-
not a debate. We're going to Iceland.
I guess we're going to Iceland. We haven't booked anything yet, though. But to share with the listeners, my photo got selected for a traveling exhibit. And so I'll have a photo in a show that is going to 2 locations in New York City, and then the 3rd location is Iceland. I'm super excited, and it really feels like I'm taking major steps in my photography, which is really exciting because I'm relatively new to it. But we were debating it because Iceland is obviously very expensive, and it's not in Reykjavik. Like Reykjavik, quick, easy, direct 4 or 5 hour flight from New York, but it's on the other side of Iceland, which is like annoying. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. It's not as easy to get to, but I guess we're going. You just said, I know
Yeah.
we were debating it, but we would just fly.
Yeah.
I also feel like traveling from point A to point B, like in the States, is like kind of ass. Like what your options are pretty much like a car or a car, whereas at least like other countries have like a ton of options. Like in Europe, you have like the trains.
What?
and-
We have so many airports.
I mean, you can fly, but I mean, like traveling without flying. Like I feel like the
Yeah.
States can really use some more like trains and shit. Like why don't we have trains?
And Greenland can use more buses. Iceland.
Iceland.
I don't know. But also, the United States actually famously has a lot of airports because we're a very big country.
Yeah, I agree though on the trains point. I almost was gonna say it's like more affordable, but it's not necessarily because trains can be really
yeah, the Amtrak is
expensive.
crazy.
Well, if we were going to Iceland and it wasn't like a layover in between of going from like Iceland to Iceland travel, if there was a train, we'd be like, that sounds luxurious. That sounds exotic.
It's also
That
kinda
sounds like,
romantic.
yeah.
I think trains are very romantic only in certain places. Like if you're taking a train from like a Rust Belt city to another Rust Belt city in the US, like it's not nice scenery. But like I took a train in Peru and it was phenomenal. So beautiful. And same thing in Europe. Like Europe trains are beautiful.
I'm going to say I took a train in Peru. Sounds like it'd be a song by the Chainsmokers.
Like I took a pill at Ibiza. I took a train in Peru.
Ayahuasca's involved somehow. There's actually a train that, okay, I'm not sure exactly where it starts, but I think it's Ontario, and it goes all the way to Vancouver. And I think it's like you spend the night on the train and stuff. But like,
Wow.
yeah, that sounds really cool. I saw like a YouTube video of someone that did it with his wife, and they got like the ultimate package. You get your like own little room, like room service, like
Is it
3
one of
meals.
those trains with the see-through ceiling?
Yeah. You sleep in the first level, and then you can sit on the like second level that has like the completely transparent roof.
Oh, that's
And it
so
looks
cool.
just so beautiful, yeah.
Now that we're talking about trains, you remember, like, I think it's really dope that back in the day, you used to be able to just, like, hop on a train and skip town. You know? Like, also earlier when you said traveling exhibition, and sorry, guys, I have very bad ADHD, but I was going to say, I grew up in a traveling exhibition.
What are you talking about?
What's a traveling exhibition?
The circus. That's it. I just want to say that I grew up as a carnival worker.
Yeah. What was your job?
I-
What was your act in the circus, John?
You know, when people tell me, they're like, oh my God, you could be like one of those guys at the carnival who draws portraits of people. I was. Nothing wrong with your career choices. But, okay, I'm done. I also still do that. Sorry, guys.
Enough of that rabble. What's next?
What's next? Okay, we're going to do a quick artist way check-in. I am on week 6. I don't even know what week I'm on. I think I'm on 6. 5 or 6. And, okay, John is going to get food, so he won't be here for the next segment. But for my artist date this week, I did a pottery class where you do the wheel spinning thing, and it was a lot harder than it looks. Vinny, have you ever tried pottery before?
I haven't, but it does look really challenging.
It requires a lot more muscle than you think it does because you have to center the clay on the spinny wheel thing, and it takes a lot of inertia to like push it while the wheel is spinning.
It's a good thing you've been lifting then.
Yeah, exactly. And I talked about this, I think, like a week or two ago, and I'm just bringing it up again because one of my artist dates a couple weeks ago was going rock climbing in Bushwick, which is something I hadn't done. And Vinny is a huge rock climber. He is like a pro, and we're going to try to go this weekend, and he's going to give me some tips. Do you want to talk about why you enjoy rock climbing?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I wouldn't say I'm a pro, but I have been.
You're a pro compared to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been rock climbing for a while, and it's just like a lot of fun. I feel like it's challenging. It has like a puzzle aspect to it. So actually, like in bouldering, they call them problems. So it's like a boulder problem. So like the route that you're supposed to take, like as the levels go up, it's not like as obvious like what moves you have to do in order to complete it. So I really like that like solving aspect. But I think my favorite thing is the social aspect. Like, I mean, you went to the climbing gym and you found out pretty quickly that people are very like open to helping and giving advice and cheering you on. And I really like that. I feel like the community is super inclusive and, you know, welcoming. It's a super nice environment, and you're getting a workout. Personally struggle going to the gym and just like lifting weights and stuff, so it's nice to have like an outlet to get that like physical component of my week checked off.
For sure. Do you feel like you use creativity while you're climbing, maybe to like discover a new route or figure out a way to, I don't know, contort your body to get to the next thing? I don't know the terms, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think you have to be really creative because there's no black and white like beta, they call it, like the solution to the problem, because everyone's body's different. So like someone with that's really tall and has long arms, like they can just reach out and grab a hold that like another person would have to like get creative and like maybe jump and grab the hold or twist their body in a weird way. So yeah, you do have to be pretty creative to solve the problems.
Yeah, for sure. It gave me a whole new respect for it. I mean, it always looked really hard. Like, I know I'm not someone with, like, great back muscles. So I knew I wouldn't be great at it. And just what you were saying about the community, everyone was so nice because I obviously, when I arrived, needed orientation. And I obviously didn't, like, complete a climb. Like, I didn't get all the way to the top really on any of them. But I was really nervous because I was like, oh my God, I'm among all these people that are just leapfrogging up there, you know, or at least it looks like that. But everyone was so nice and welcoming, and no one was like, oh, you're a beginner who doesn't know how to do anything. Because sometimes when you're trying something new, especially something that you know you're not good at, it can be very intimidating and vulnerable, but everyone was super chill. It was It was a great place.
There's not a lot of gatekeeping, you know. I feel like everyone's like, yeah, for sure, like climb, join the community.
Question for both of you. Whenever you're like climbing and you're up in the rocks, like while you're rock climbing, do you ever think to yourself, climbing rocks?
Like every single time. Yeah.
Climbing rocks. Get it? Like
that's
rock climbing backwards.
I get it.
That's exclusively
Too smart for
what
the
I'm
room. My bad. Everyone's like rolling their eyes.
Yeah, no, for sure. Every single time.
All right, guys, do we want to leave everyone with a quote to end the episode? John, Vinny, do you have any favorite quotes?
I'm just going to give a general tip of advice that is normally used a lot in improv. Play to the top of your intelligence. You can apply that anywhere in life.
Love it. Vinny, what's your quote of the week?
Yeah, so I really like fantasy books. And yeah, like there's a really nice quote about fear from Dune, and I feel like, yeah, I'm really fascinated by fear. So the quote is, and I'm modifying it so it's not that dramatic. So it's, I must not fear. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And,
I love that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like I really try to keep that concept in mind throughout life. Just like, don't let fear make the decisions for you. And usually, like, when you're feeling fear, that means you're uncomfortable, and that's a good thing, you know?
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, guys. All right. Here are 3 ways that you can support the show for free. You can follow the show on Instagram at Version1 Podcast and subscribe to our Substack, version1podcast.substack.com. Links to both of those are in the show notes. And I'm also on buymeacoffee.com/Waverly Colville. You can leave a review on whatever app you're listening to this on and rate us 5 stars. And you can send this episode to a friend. New episodes every Tuesday. John, Vinny, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, This is great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.